1 round heat at my command, ready report, which means everybody load a heat round, look at that village, pick out your aim points on the enemy positions, and when they're ready, we're going to fire 9 simultaneous main gun rounds at the center. I fire 1 round before that to mark center with a tank heat round. Green says ready, white says ready. I say fire, 9 tank main gun rounds impact simultaneously. Now, we get the word, continue your move to the east. And it's at that point I just get this gut feeling, I get this feeling that we're about to make contact with a defending enemy force. And I make the decision to go into a tanks lead formation.
That means positioning the Abrams tanks in a rolling wedge with the more vulnerable Bradley fighting vehicles tucked in behind for protection. This formation places McMaster's big guns forward, ready for whatever lies ahead.
So my tank comes up over that crest. And again, remember, it's a sandstorm, right? You can't see very far, but it is if the sandstorm just lifted. I mean, as soon as we came over that ridge, there was some weird environmental factor, but it was like a curtain lifted. And what I was confronted with was the enemy defensive position.
They were deployed in a reverse slope position, which is designed to minimize the amount of time and the amount of distance that an attacking force actually has before it can start to fire on the defenders. Unfortunately, they didn't count on the sophisticated optics and fire control systems of the US M1 tanks, which made their thinking entirely obsolete.
I could see 8 enemy tanks in defensive positions, and I said, fire, Sabo, which means we had a heat round in, and it means the next round going in that gun is going to be a Sabo tank, armor defeating round.
The Abrams tank carries 2 types of high-velocity ammunition. The Sabo, an armor-piercing dart made with high-density depleted uranium, and the high-explosive anti-tank round, a shaped charge projectile which can bore through heavy armor.
We engaged that first tank with a heat round. That fireball blows the tank commander out of that tank. And then ultimately there's a secondary explosion that blows the turret off that tank. My gunner traverses left, hits another tank. We're able to destroy 3 tanks as our tank hits the first leading edge of the minefield.
I looked to the right and I saw what looked like explosions to the left front of McMaster's tank. And I couldn't tell if these were mines or artillery fire again. And my gunner, Dewey Jones, pipes up and says, "Holy shit, look at this." And I dropped down inside. I looked through my commander's sight, and I said, "Oh yeah," I was vitally impressed with the enemy. Here were, rows, literally 10, 15 tanks spread right across to the front, and you could see that these tank guns were moving. And I imagine, since these were manual T-72s, the poor Republican Guard was in there busily cranking to get the guns around towards us. Then all of a sudden, my tank went into a minefield. And this thing rocked the 70-ton tank. A fireball went over it, knocked me down to the turret floor. And fortunately, my driver was very tough-minded. "So what the hell is that?" And I said, "Don't worry about it, keep driving." As we were coming out of the minefield, we had a couple of tanks to our front. It was, "Sir, I got tanks to my front." And I'm looking at the damn tank that we're about to take under fire, and the gunner hesitated. "Sir, can I shoot? Can I fire?" I said, "For God's sake, shoot!" We swung to the next one and fired. And in the meantime, I could see that Eagle Troop was taking enormous numbers of vehicles under fire.
Initially, there was a great deal of disorientation on the Iraqi side because they just assumed that this couldn't be American tanks attacking them. It had to be aircraft. But even after they figured it out, they still had difficulty getting into their vehicle in time because they didn't realize how quickly the Americans were closing on them. American armored forces would charge, using speed to simply try to disorient the Iraqis, and it worked. The Iraqis could not imagine armored forces this big, this powerful, moving at them as fast as they were.
It's a tactic developed by General Erwin Rommel, the great World War II German tank commander. And the M1A1 Abrams is ideally suited for this kind of warfare.
The gun stays right on target. It has a geostabilized system, and I mean, you can be moving out at 40, 50 kilometers an hour, going over bumps and firing. And then the shock effect of a 70-ton machine hurtling at you. I think this is the blow from which the enemy could never really recover. We were now on top of their command post, and we entered their reserve position. And just in like typical Soviet doctrine, they had put their tank reserve like a coil. But we moved too fast. They couldn't get out of their coil in time. They were just starting their engines. I looked at an enemy tank commander, looked over his shoulder at me. I could see the expression on his face, and we engaged that tank at very close range. And you couldn't tell the difference between the enemy tank being hit and our gun going off, and just big hunks of metal, blue sparks arced right back over our heads. And then the rest of our tanks came up, and we destroyed these tanks in their assembly area. Iraqis, had set up a pretty sound defense. I mean, it was a reverse slope defense. It had a reserve. It had a counterattack plan. It had a minefield to disrupt our movement. But the fatal flaw was that we gained surprise over them.
Despite the Iraqis' best efforts, Eagle Troop overwhelms the position, killing hundreds of Iraqis and destroying more than 50 tanks and armored vehicles. It's the opening round in a furious tank battle that will soon be fought across a much larger front. 8 kilometers to the north, the 2nd Armored Cavalry's Ghost Troop slowly makes its way through the blinding sandstorm. In the reduced visibility, they have lost touch with Eagle Troop. Ghost Troop's commander sends 2 lightly armored Bradley reconnaissance vehicles to reestablish contact.
I tell the driver to start slowing down because I'm starting to see these little objects. But what could they be? I mean, you're in the middle of the desert. So I'm immediately thinking, well, they're vehicles. But my number one concern, of course, is I'm going to go link up with Eagle. Maybe that's Eagle. Maybe that's not. And I see all these people emerging out of nowhere, out of the ground. And then you see like this diesel plume, and then immediately followed by this BMF giant T-72 tank backing up out of a hole. That must be enemy. Now I'm seeing a lot of activity. Turrets start moving, and I'm like, oh, where is Eagle Troop?
February 26, 1991, 1600 hours. Eagle and Ghost Troops of the 2nd U.S. Armored Cavalry have become separated in a sandstorm. 2 Bradley fighting vehicles from Ghost Troop have been dispatched to reestablish visual contact between the 2 tank units. But they run into a platoon of Iraqi T-72 tanks.
So I tell the driver to pull up to this little mound. And as soon as he comes to a stop, he says, "Tank front." "Roger, got it, thanks." And he goes, no, there's a tank to our immediate front. He goes, I see it. No, you don't understand. There's a tank to our front. And I just get up, push myself out of that turret, and I look down, and I go, I'll be damned. Well, what happened is I didn't realize the little mound of dirt that I told him to pull up from was a T-72. I just grabbed the commander's override, max deflect the 25mm cannon. And then I said, we're scouts. We don't go toe-to-toe with tanks. We need to back up a little. Well, now I'm seeing all these tanks, a lot of activity. And the turrets start moving, and I'm like, oh, shit, where is Eagle Troop? So I'm backing up. Well, where am I going to go to? Okay, Sergeant Wonder, raise the missile. So I lay him onto this T-72 that's showing me this beautiful right profile. Sergeant Wonder, gunner, missile tank is right to our front. And I can't identify. This could be Eagle Troop. And I'm just like, how could you miss? It's bigger than a barn door. What do you mean you can't see this? So I said, go clear channel. He goes, flips over, takes it off thermals. Identified T-72 tank. I said, fire.
The TOW missile is the Bradley's most powerful and accurate weapon. It's guided by wires, enabling the gunner to steer it to the target, even at ranges of up to 3,000 meters.
Now I realize there's like 8 of them, all in this immediate vicinity. At this time, I'm thinking, okay, these guys all know that I'm here, and they're probably a little pissed off about it. So I go gunner, missile tank, he is identified, and I say, fire. And I see this missile come out from the launcher, go just past my gun tube, fall to the desert floor. And I'm like, misfire. And at that time, my wingman opens up a missile, blows the heck out of this thing that was turning his turret on me. Then it occurred to me, we both have shot both our missiles. And we both have to our front at least 8 T-72 tanks. Meriwether says, hey, I need to do a reload drill. So I said, roger that, we got you covered. And I told Sergeant Wonder, all right, whatever we do, we're going to keep firing and firing until we can't fire no more. And he starts firing 25mm cannon into this thing. And it's bouncing off the turret. As my gunner, he said, sir, it's bouncing off. We're just pissing it off. And my intent was, look, better us than my wingman who's standing there, basically naked. I'm thinking, well, I wonder how long it's going to take that gunner and commander to shoot me while I'm sitting there pinking it with a 25mm cannon.
The M2 Bradley is a reconnaissance vehicle designed for mobility rather than heavy combat. It is equipped with a 25mm main cannon capable of firing high explosive rounds. But to increase its speed and range, it is protected by just 25mm of armor plating. The Bradley is no match for the powerful T-72.
Then at that time, my wingman reported up. Almost instantaneously, he serviced that tank with a missile. Probably saved my life. So out of the sandstorm and a lot of smoke now on the battlefield, emerged a couple of Eagle Troop Bradleys, slowly approach me from the right. And he pulls up next to me, and he screams at the top of his lungs, "There's tanks over there!" I go, "I know!"
In just minutes, Haynes and his wingman destroy no fewer than 5 T-72s.